On today's show, we're going to check out some wide receiver trade targets for the Browns. Now, some of these are definitely swinging for the fences type of players like this guy here, Stefon Diggs. But I think there are some very reasonable wide receiver trade targets for Andrew Berry and the Browns because 2024 is all about all in on Deshaun Watson, right? They really got to make this year count. And I don't think they're going to leave any stone unturned. So they're probably going to at least look into and exhaust all possible options. Now, if we're talking about trading for a wide receiver, I do think it's important to begin the conversation with what are you trading away, right? What assets do you have? You don't have a first, but they have a second, which they used last year to get Elijah Moore. You have a third, you got a pair of fives, pair of sixes, and a seventh. Now, as for player draft assets, you really don't have any. Like, I sure hope they don't trade JOK or Greg Newsome. There are none of those guys. Like, you don't really have a young or even old player. I guess maybe Wyatt Teller, but I don't think the Browns are interested in trading Bitonio or Teller. So there's really only picks they could offer in my eyes to get a wide receiver. So with that being said, let's check out our first guy, which is Stefon Diggs, because it wouldn't be an NFL offseason without talking about Stefon Diggs being traded. And then we've got Davante Adams to go along with it. And then finally, Brandon Ayiuk. Now, these three players are your swinging for the fences, blockbuster, oh my God, I cannot believe the Browns got him type of candidates, right? These would definitely be big-time moves that I don't think are likely to happen, but how many people thought Deshaun Watson to Cleveland was very likely to happen? Now, Stefon Diggs has been rumored to be a trade candidate in previous off seasons, or there's just been some overall rumors of unhappiness in Buffalo with all their, by their standards, early playoff exits. So after another exit to the Kansas City Chiefs, could we see Buffalo and Diggs decide it's just not working ultimately? And we're getting great numbers out of Stefon Diggs, but we're not getting over the hump. And so maybe we got to try something different. Now, Diggs did sign an extension recently, so he's under contract through 2027. He turns 30 years old this offseason, or this past season, I beg your pardon. But Diggs had another phenomenal season, in my opinion, for the Buffalo Bills. It was maybe not his best year in Buffalo, though. We'll throw up his stats over the last 4 seasons. 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. Average, a dip from the year before. There's no question about it, right? Wasn't that maybe as big of a playmaker as he was the previous season, only catching 1 more pass in 2022, but going for nearly 300 more yards and 3 more touchdowns. Like I said to begin the show, the Browns are going to be in the wide receiver market, but I ultimately think Stefon Diggs is just going to stay in Buffalo. Why? I've got 31 million reasons to believe he's going to stay in Buffalo because that is his dead cap hit. Are the Bills dying to move on from him so badly that they'll allocate $31 million of their 2024 salary cap to a player that's not even on their roster? Unlikely. Now, what about the other 2 guys we looked at here? Davante Adams and Brandon Ayiuk. Both players this past season, or this current season, I guess, had great seasons, right? Even Davante Adams having a down year was 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like, if that's a down year, you're doing a lot of things pretty well. But Brandon Ayiuk was a big play machine for the 49ers. He averaged nearly 18 yards a reception, 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns from only 75 grabs. And talk about efficiency. 105 targets, and you get 1,300 yards out of production from him compared to Adams' 175 targets and 1,100 yards. But as for the contract details, Brandon Ayiuk is entering the final year of his rookie contract. They had his 5th-year option picked up, and it's a fully guaranteed $14.1 million salary. So if the Browns were to trade for him, they would take on all $14.1 million unless the 49ers opted to eat some of that money, kind of like Cleveland did with Baker Mayfield when he went down to Carolina. As for Davante Adams, the 31-year-old wideout, he's under contract for a little bit longer through 2026. He's got a $16.8 million base salary. Now, a lot of Davante Adams' contract has already been paid out. So the Browns and any team trading for Adams could theoretically move on from Adams. not too late in his contract and not have to face a big dead cap hit, right? A lot of that money at the end of his contract is not guaranteed. So it's almost like it's really not even there because unless he's playing at a super high level, no team is going to pay him $30 million when he's 32, 33 years old if they're not getting 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns out of him. So that is one to keep an eye on right there. Now, as for what a trade could look like, let's start with Davante Adams. I don't have a great idea as to what Adams goes for that the Browns could swing. You ask a Raider fan what they want Davante Adams, and they're going to say a first rounder. I don't have a first rounder to give. So what if I make like a collection of really good appetizers? This is what I'm going to offer all three of these wide receivers. The sampler at Buffalo Wild Wings. I can't give you wings. But what if I give you a little bit of everything on the menu? A second-round pick, a fifth-round pick in 2024, and a future second-rounder. The Raiders have already paid a lot of his contract, so Cleveland wouldn't be on the books for too much money. So the Raiders would get 2 seconds and a fifth. I think this could be something that the Browns could definitely get behind. I'm sure the Raiders would love to get a first-rounder. Another potential trade option would be Brandon Ayiuk for a 2025 first-rounder. You're not getting Brandon Ayiuk for a second or third. Like, he was drafted in the first round. He has been a very good player. If Brandon Aiyuk went in this draft class in April, a team would pick him in the first round. So the best the Browns can offer is a future first-round pick, which I don't love going 4 straight years without a first-rounder. But if you really want to maximize 2024, you want to go with the Rams, F it all in. If you get one Super Bowl, it's all worth it. And finally, what about Stefon Diggs? A 2024 second, a 2024 fifth, and a 2025 fourth. I don't think Stefon Diggs is as valuable as Davante Adams, so I have him getting slightly less. Again, the Bills traded Diggs for a first-round pick, and I'm sure they would love to get a first-round pick back. But Diggs is a couple of years older, and he's got a much bigger contract now, so it's not going to be as simple for Buffalo. This is my best trade comp that I think Cleveland could come up with. Now, if you were to pick a trade, which trade would you pick? Like, which receiver would you go for? Davante Adams, Brandon Aiyuk, or Stefon Diggs? Let me know in the comment section right now which guy you would like to see the Browns pursue. Moving on to our fourth wide receiver trade target. How about Jerry Jeudy from the Broncos? Someone that the Browns have been rumored to be interested in for quite some time. Jerry Jeudy has been, like I said, rumored to the Browns all the way back to last NFL trade deadline and last offseason and maybe even the previous NFL trade deadline. I still remember after the 2022 NFL trade deadline when Andrew Berry spoke to the media, he said they were really close to trading for a guy, and we never really found out if that was Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, or Daron Payne. Maybe it was Jeudy all along. But he is entering his fifth-year option. It's a fully guaranteed $12.9 million deal. So similar to Brandon Aiyuk, you'd be taking on the entire contract, and it's very simple. It's just $12.9 million. Now, he turns 25 years old in April, so there's a long career ahead of Jerry Jeudy. But the first 4 years of his career, they have been underwhelming. Now, there are multiple reasons why. He has had a handful of quarterbacks, right? From Drew Lock to Russell Wilson to Teddy Bridgewater to Brett Rippon, and the list goes on and on. But he has yet to be a 1,000-yard receiver. He has not really emerged as a scoring threat, right? His career high in a single season for touchdowns is 6. Last season, he had 2. In 2021, he had 0. And in his rookie season, he only had 3. I could see Andrew Berry going for Jerry Jeudy because last year, the rumor was the Broncos wanted a first or a second and a player for Jeudy. Well, after the season Jeudy had, and with him only having 1 more year left on his rookie contract, they're not going to get a first rounder. And I could see the Broncos moving on from Jerry Jeudy because they are short draft picks. They are attempting to do a rebuild of sorts. They're moving on from Russell Wilson, and they are $25 million-ish over the cap, so they could get nearly half of that off their books with one simple trade and maybe get a second rounder in return. So here's my trade idea. The Browns get Jerry Jeudy, and the Broncos get Cleveland's second-round pick number 54 overall. What do we think? Yes or no? I know that Jerry Jeudy as a player has been underwhelming for being the 15th overall pick, Blitnikoff winner at Alabama, and I'm not going to excuse what's been a underwhelming career at times, but I do think a big reason has been he has just not fit well with Russell Wilson's play style. Like if you think about what Russell Wilson did really well in Seattle, close your eyes. I bet you think of him throwing a 50-yard bomb to Doug Baldwin or Tyler Lockett as they get down at the 1-yard line. That's just not Jerry Jeudy's play style. Jerry Jeudy is, I'm going to beat you in the short intermediate routes, and then I'm going to run for a long time after the catch. That's what Cleveland was hoping to get more of out of Elijah Moore. And they didn't really get enough of that. So maybe they decide to double down and go get a guy like Jeudy. Now, before we get on to the fifth and final trade target for Cleveland, I do want to tell you guys about a great deal with our friends over at Fanatics, which is this Brownie the Elf t-shirt, currently 30% off. And one of my favorite things about Fanatics, you know, there's girl math. I'm going to say this right now. Boy math is just going on to Fanatics and seeing free shipping every single time. So you can get 30% off plus some free shipping potentially to go along with it depending on when you order the shirt. Just go to chatsports.com/elfshirt. Got to use that link. It's in the comments and description of today's video. Replenish your Cleveland Browns wardrobe right now because if you wait to do it in August, September, they're not going to have any sales because everyone's buying gear at that time. So do it right now and future you will thank you. Fifth and final trade target. The first three were definitely reaching for the stars. The last two are much more feasible. They both come from the AFC West. It is Mike Wiliams from the Chargers. Another player the Browns were rumored to have interest in back when he was a free agent after his rookie contract was up. But with a change going on in LA and the Chargers looking to go a bit of a different direction and maybe get a bit younger, they could opt to move on from Mike Wiliams. Now, unfortunately, Wiliams suffered a torn ACL in Week 3, missed pretty much the entirety of the 2023 season. In fact, the last 2 years for Wiliams, it's been tough sledding. He has missed nearly half of the games. He also turns 30 years old this upcoming October. So I don't know how much gas he really has left in the tank after missing nearly half of the games the last 2 seasons. But if you look back at his 2021 season here, you can see why the Browns were very interested in Mike Wiliams before the Chargers ultimately franchise tagged him, and then they figured out a 3-year contract with him. But there's only 1 year left on that 3-year contract, so if the Browns were to trade for Wiliams, they wouldn't be locked into a very expensive long-term deal. It would be a rental in some ways, and maybe an extension or another 1-year contract if both sides are happy with how 2024 unfolds. Now, I don't think Mike Wiliams is going to go for a whole lot. I look at Mike Wiliams similar to what Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins, right, who one was traded for a fifth and the other wasn't traded at all. I've got a 30-year-old, somewhat expensive, coming off a torn ACL wide receiver. The Chargers would be very thankful if any team called and offered to take that contract off their hands. Otherwise, they're going to end up probably just releasing him. They maybe bring him back, but I'm not too optimistic on that happening. So I'm sure the Chargers would be happy to find a suitor to trade Mike Wiliams to, and it wouldn't cost you very much. Now, if you didn't like any of those top 5 options right there, there are some cheaper options out there. DeAndre Hopkins I'm going to toss on there. Cheaper is maybe not the best word to describe him, but it's just a good reminder of Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins were so prolific together in Houston. The Browns should at least pick up the phone and see what's going on down in Nashville with a regime change happening. Tutu Atwell, former second-round pick by the Rams, he's not even a top 2 option anymore with the way Puka Nacua emerged on the scene this season. So maybe the Browns see they can get him for cheap. Michael Thomas is an interesting one because he kind of had a new contract reworked in New Orleans. He's expected to be released, I believe, is the way to put it, by the Saints, but maybe New Orleans will try and find a last-minute trade partner, kind of like how Amari Cooper was supposed to be released by the Cowboys, and then he was traded to the Browns. That one's kind of not very a gray trade target. It's not very black and white in terms of what's going on down in the Big Easy. Treylon Burks, former first-round pick by the Titans, guy's been a dud. So you could get him for next to nothing potentially, and maybe the Browns coaching staff thinks they know the right buttons to press, And then finally, Jonathan Mingo, former second-round pick by the Panthers. He was being outsnapped and outgained and out everything by old man Adam Thielen last year. So I could see the Panthers with a new regime coming in as well, maybe gutting out some of their not older, but previous players from the last regime that weren't doing all that well for them. Now, if we run through the trades one more time, I want to know which trade you like the most. The Davante Adams trade, the Brandon Ayiuk trade, the Stefon Diggs trade, or could it be the Jeudy to the Browns trade, or finally the Mike Wiliams trade? Which trade do you like the most? Let me know down below in the comment section. It's always good to hear the voice of the Dog Pound. Now let's wrap up today's video with picking a card. If you're just tuning in recently, we pick a card at the end of every episode during the off season just to keep things a little bit more entertaining and interesting. It's similar to how PMT ends their episode. So, Trace, what do you want to go with?
I like the Queen of Hearts.
Queen of Hearts. I'm going to go with the 9 of Diamonds. One more cut. Here we go. 9 of Spades.
Oh!
Off the rim. Damn. Gordon Hayward at Butler. Off the rim. That's going to do it for us on this edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate those of you that take time out of their day to come hang out with us here at the channel. So if you have not subscribed, consider going ahead and doing so. Get yourself locked in for the best Browns content all off season long.